All right, this is algebra lesson. Wow, this is pretty bold. 10.1. Okay. Square root functions. Okay, this one, all I'm going to have us do is learn. Well, they want you to graph a lot of things, doing it correctly. All I'm going to do is I'm going to do it for you once. I'm going to graph for you once, and then after I graph for you once, you are going to just, from now on, I just want to look at the test that I give, that I wrote the test, and I tell you to graph it roughly. It would be kind of like, on our, if you knew that this was the vertex, right? And I said, and you just did this, right? I mean, you didn't actually, you knew that that's what it was, or you knew that it was right here, and you knew that it crossed the y here, and so you just went like this, where you just kind of, you're showing me that you do understand. That's all I'm going to end up having you do here for this. Here is the parent square root function. What's the parent square root function mean? What does it mean when we talk about the parent function? What is a parent function? We've only had like 7 parent functions. What is a parent function? The original, it's the, I wouldn't say original, it would be the, no. What would you say it is? What's the parent quadratic function? F of x equals x squared. That's a quadratic, the parent function. What would be the parent linear function? Y equals x. What would be the parent absolute value function? What is it called? Absolute value of x. Okay. What would be the parent, I don't know, what's the other function? I mean, what are these parent functions? Don't say the first one. What does that mean, the first one? The first one?
The layout, the formula of how to store it.
No. What is this? What would you say that is? What would you say that is? What would you say that is? What word am I looking for here, people? Okay, compare this to this. What's the difference between these two? Just like if you just looked at this one, you'd say that this one looks very, and this one looks very, that one looks very, this one, these are the most simple, right? The most basic. Show me a more basic or a more simple quadratic than that. How could you have a more basic or quadratic or simple quadratic than that? I'm serious. Is there one? Is there a more simple linear function than y equals x? No. Did you say maybe? Is there a more simple? No. So the parent function is the most simple, the most basic of that type of function. The most basic or simple type of function, type of square root function, or you would say the parent function, would be this. F of x equals the square root of x. That's the most basic one. Here's what it looks like, people. Let's do it. Let's do it. F of x can be written as y, right? So we're going to do I am going to make this bigger. Okay. So f of x equals the square root of x. So you go y is the square root of x. And so now we're going to draw our graph. In order to do this for the first time, how do we do any of these? Make a table. We'll say x is -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Agreed? Okay, this is x, this is y. If x was -2, that would make it be y equals the absolute value of -2, not absolute value, the square root of -2. What is that? There's no such thing, right? You can't have a square root of a negative, right? Can't have a square root of a negative. So then that's a big fat X, like not possible, right? What about negative 1? Y is equal to square root of negative 1. Nothing, right? Okay. What about 0? What is the absolute value? What is the square root of 0, I mean? 0. So then that would be 0, 0. That means that there's 1 point. Agreed? Okay. What about 1? What is the, it's 1, 1, right? So you agree that it's 1? 1, 1. Okay. And what if X was a 2? What's the square root of 2? 1.414, right? So 1.4, that would go like right about there. Do 3. Let's jump down to 3. 1.4. What if it was 3? 1.7. Okay, so that's a little above. What about 4? Is 2. Okay. What about 5? 2.2, right? Okay, so look here. This is what a square root function looks like. Are you looking? Here's what it looks like. It literally is like an R. Does that make sense? It's just this weird looking, and you can see they have it down there. They have that, and there's the parent function. So then let's talk about this. What's the domain? What's the range? What is the domain? You're looking at it. I mean, just look up here. You don't need to look in your book. What is the domain? X is greater than or equal to 0, right? X could be 0. Couldn't X be 0? Didn't we decide? Was it possible for X to be 0 and have it come up with a solution? Yes. So could X be 0? Yes. Therefore, it's greater than or equal to 0. What about the range? Greater than or equal to 0, right? For X, we're talking about everything over here. And for Y, we're talking about everything up here, right? So there it is. Does that make sense? That's the parent function. So on your test, when I ask you to do this, I think I say to roughly, not specifically, graph these things. If I said to graph the parent function of a square root, you would just go like this. It needs to start in the right spot, and it needs to be going the right direction. It needs to be arced in the right way, but that's all I care about. Does that make sense? Okay. Something else that I want you to see is that notice this. Do you remember what we had before? Let me put it back. Notice what is 1 point that was for sure on there. There's 2 points that are clearly on there. 0, 0 is on there, and 1, 1 is on there. Okay, that's because what is right there in front of that? A 1. Let's do this. I'm going to show you how these things get moved around. Okay, I'm going to now compare them to the parent function. So the parent function, f of x equals the square root of x, was, I'm going to draw it again, and we're going to use different colors to show. So we'll do, this is the parent function. It goes right like this. I'll do it a little bit better. Okay, parent function. It does go through 1, 1. It does go at 0, 0. Okay, let's do another one now. We'll do it in red. What if I have this? F of x equals 2 times the square root of x. That 2 looks, listen, do you remember the slope-intercept form? Do you know y equals mx plus b, right? So what goes in front of the x? What's in front of the x? When I have y equals, 2x plus 1, what is that 2? That's the slope, right? And what is this 1, the negative 1? That's the y-intercept. Nothing changes here. So all of a sudden now we have a 2 in front of what we're talking about there, 2 in front of that x. That 2 means this is now going to be a much steeper arc. Does that make sense? Much steeper, smooth curve, right? So it would look like this. Nothing changes here. We're still here at 0, so the red one is still here at 0. But now it's going to be steeper. In fact, we know exactly where it's going to be because it's a 2. Where's that thing going to be? What point? What's another point it's going to be at? What? Not 2, 2. 1, 2. Right? It's going to be steeper, so it's going to look like this. Does that make sense? It's steeper. In fact, you know it's going to be at 0.12. If this one here is at 0.11. When it's a 1 out here, right? When there's a 1 out here, then when it's a 2, it's going to be at 1, 2. What happens if I made it a 3? What if I made this a 3? Where's it going to be? What point? 1, 3. It'll be way up here. Does that make sense? Makes sense? Okay. What if it was a 1/2? What would happen if it was a 1/2 times the square root of x? Then it would be, so then tell me, what would you call this? You'd say this thing is more shallow, right? You all know the difference between steep and shallow, right? So you'd say the word shallow. It's a more shallow curve, and it would be at 1/1/2. Does that make sense? Make sense? Okay. Something else. What happens if this thing was a negative? Negative the square root of x. Do you know what would happen? What did happen when we had a parabola where the whole thing was negative? Don't say upside down. Reflected across the x-axis. So instead of it being like this, up like that, it's down here, and it goes like this. That is this. Does that make sense? If the whole thing's negative, we're going down. Okay. What happens if I have this? Square root of x plus 2. There's that 2. He's out there all by himself. What does it look a lot like? The y-intercept. In fact, it is the y-intercept. So what does that mean is going to happen? Everything goes up too. It starts right here. We're going to go up to right here, just like here. There's up, right? Makes sense? Up 2. Okay. Last part. What happens if I have this? What if it goes absolute value of, or square root of x plus 2? Okay. Inside of there. That is going to make this thing go left or right. Let me tell you what the deal is. It does the opposite. If it's inside of the square root symbol, it does the opposite of what you'd think. Remember, if it's out here, not inside the square root symbol, then that's up and down. That's the y-intercept. The y-intercept's always out there by itself, right? If it's inside, though, it's going to do the opposite. Now we're talking about left and right. It's going to do the opposite. So instead of going, plus 2 would be, it would be to the right 2, right? That's what plus 2 means, going to the right 2. But since it's inside the square root symbol and we're in this problem, we're going left 2. So this one would simply be like this. Make sense? Is this too difficult of arithmetic for you? No. So what's the only thing you have to do here with all this? Is memorize which way things go and what things are, right? Yes. The plus 3 would mean that the whole thing would go up 3. So I wouldn't say it's the intercept, it's the up and down. Does that make sense? Yes?
So if it was minus 2, it would be to the right?
It would be, if it was minus 2, it'd be to the right. Exactly. See if you guys can do this. We'll do a couple. I want you to write for me the parent function. That's number 1. Number 2. Up here. All eyes are up here. You're watching now. The first one, do get in black, is the parent function. That means it starts at 0, 0, right? And then it goes up. I mean, it's just a straight up boom, right? It's going to do that. That's the parent function. That's that guy. Number 2. The only difference between the first one, the parent function, and this is there's a 4 out here. That very much acts like the slope. So it's still going to start down here at 0, 0, and it's going to go up to there, 1, 4. It's going to be pretty steep. Yes? Makes sense? Okay. That's this one. In orange. Number 3. Several things are happening here. The first thing is it's 1/2. What's the 1/2 going to do? It's going to make it shallow. It's going to compress it. You can even say compress. It's going to smash it, right? It's going to make it more shallow. Half of it, right? That's what's going to be here at 1/2. Right here. Not really. Here's the deal. Look here. There's a -3 inside of the square root symbol. We do the opposite of that, which means that we go to the right. That means our bottom is right here, and it's at 1/2, and so it's going to look like that, right? That's what happens there. It's shallow, and it's shifted to the right. Number 4, in green. Lots going on here. 1, I have a -2. What is that going to tell you? First of all, it's going to be reflected, right? Also, it's a 2. It's not just a negative, it's a -2, which means it's going to be steeper, right? I mean, it's steeper. It's reflected and it's steeper. I have a -4 out here. What's that guy mean? Everything is down 4. And what does the +1 mean? It's to the left 1. So we got lots of places to move this to. So we're down 4 to the left 1. That means we're starting out right there. We do that first. Got to find out where home base is. Down 4, left 1. Now, we know that it is reflected. If it wasn't reflected, if it was just a 2, it would be going like this. Agreed? That would be +2. That would be this if it was a positive. It is not. It's a negative. So we reflect it across the x-axis, which means it goes down here. Makes sense? It's reflected across the x. How many of you got that? That's not good. I'm going to give you one more little quiz here, and then that's going to be it. Number 1. I have to do f of x just so that we're staying consistent. F of x equals 2 times the square root of x. Number 2, f of x. Nope, we're going to go x of y equals negative absolute value of the square root of x plus 2. Number 3, g of b is 1/3 times the value of x minus 1 minus 1. And then number 4 is h of y equals all right, there it is. This is the last chance you're going to get before you have to do your homework, so you're just going to pay attention here. The first one, you got to find out where home base is, right? Home base is normally, where's home base for the parent function? What's that called? The origin, right? That's the origin. That's the home base. In this situation, does that 2 have anything to do with home base? No. What's that 2 have to do with? The steepness, right? The steepness. Does that guy have anything to do with the home base? Yeah, what are we going to do with that? Down 2, right? So home base moves down 2. We also know that it's now, and that's it. It's not left or right, anything. That 2 makes it steep, so it's going to be like a 2 slope, right? Up 2 over 1. And then, so then there would be our number 1. Makes sense to everybody? Number 2, there's a negative out here. What's that? Just in the back of your head, you got to go, oh, that means it's going to be an upside down. Reflected. Okay, home base is normally here at, home base is normally here. Okay, and then, so what is, does that negative have to do with home base? No. Does that plus 2 have to do with home base? Yes. What's plus 2 mean? It means to the left. It's only because it's inside the square root, right? To the left 2, that means home base is now right here. It is reflected, so it would normally be up here, right? Up 1 over 1, right? But now it's not because it's reflected. Make sense? That's the red one. Hope you're paying attention. Number 3, blue one. Lots going on here. Home base is normally at 0, 0. It is not there. What is that negative 1 telling us to do to home base? Down 1. There is a negative 1 here. What's that mean inside there? To the right 1, right? We do the opposite of what's in here, right? So down 1 over 1 is to the right. It is also a 1/3 out here. What's that mean? It's very shallow, right? And listen, where would it normally be? If there was no number out there, then it would be up 1 over 1. This time it's a 1/3, so it's over 1 and up 1/3. It's very shallow. Make sense? The last one, the orange one. Big ugly one. Okay. Home base is normally here, not where it is now. That plus 3 means it's going to go up 3, and the plus 4 means it's going to go to the left 4. That means it's way over here. Right? Up 3 to the left 4. I have a big ugly thing here, negative 2 and 4/5. We know that it's steep. We know that it is. We know it's steep, and we know that it is reflected. Right? Why is he the only one? Are you guys not understanding this? Do we need to stay in at lunchtime to do more? It sounds like we do. Let's take another quiz. That's every single one of you. The only person who responded was him. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of you. When I ask you, and it's very obvious, listen, if he doesn't respond, then now I know for sure that nobody knows the answers. Awesome. I'm excited. Number 1. Come on in. Come on in. Go get them. Tell them to come in. They can watch you do this. All right, here we go. Your eyes are up here, and you're participating. The first one. Where's home base normally? The origin, right? It's normally here. Where is it this time? Is that where it's at? Is it at the origin? No. What does this 1/4 have to do with the home base? Nothing, right? That has to do with the height or the steepness, right? This +3, is it inside of the square root? No. Therefore, it's like up and down, just like the y-intercept. So we're up 3, right? And it is a 1/4 steepness. What does that mean? Instead of it being up here, instead of it being up 1 and over 1, it's going to be over 1 and up 1/4, right? So it's very shallow. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 2. This one's a little more complicated. Not much. Number 2. Home base is normally here. It is not there. Does this 2 have anything to do with home base? No. Does this 2.5? Yes. It's inside, so plus 2.5 inside the square root means left 2.5, right? So that means it's over here, left 2.5. It is a -2. That means if it was a +2, it would be it would be right there, right? It is not. It's down 2. It's reflected. Make sense? Okay. If you have trouble with that reflecting thing, pretend it's not a negative and put it up where it belongs and then go, okay, I see it reflected across. The green one. This one, home base is supposed to be here. Is it here? No. Oh boy. The outside says plus a 0.3 with a line over the 3. What is that plus? What is a 0.3 with a line over it? How much is that exactly? It's 1/3, right? So it's plus 1/3, which means that since that's dealing with the y, it's plus 1/3, and then it's -2 inside, which makes it to the right. So plus 1/3 to the right 2, it's about right there. Agreed? Okay. Is it positive? It's regularly positive, so it goes up. Notice that I put that second point so that I have a good idea where it's at, and then after that I just kind of take a stab. That's what I want. You're fine. Come in and do your set. Wyatt, we've had this conversation before. I'm tired of you being in here. The orange one. Okay. Origin is the home base is normally at the origin. It is not. The -4 means down 4. Down 4, and then plus 1 inside there means to the left 1. So down 4, left 1. 3 means it's very steep. 3 up and over. It should look like that. Does that make sense to everybody? That's all I'm demanding that you do. I could make you draw. I'd make a table for each one of these. I'm not making you do that. As long as you have, there's only 2 points I demand. What are the 2 points that I demand? Home base, right, where the thing starts, and then you have to have the next point because I've shown you how it works. Now, domain and range. Let's do this one very quickly. What is the domain for the black one up there? What's the domain? You'd say that the domain is x is greater than or equal to 0, right? Because domain is all the numbers x can be, right? So greater than or equal to 0 because it goes to the right, right? What would the range be? Sorry. Right, yeah, sorry, hold on. The domain is all things that x can be, right? And so that would be 0, right? The range, what is the range then? It's starting here and it's going up forever, right? It is going up forever. It doesn't look like it, but it is. So then it would be y is greater than or equal to 3. What would the I'll put it in black here for you. What about this guy, right? What is the domain of that guy? X is greater than or equal to -1. What is the range? Y is greater than or equal to -4, right? That's the bottom, right? It's going up. Makes sense? Got to get the domain and the range. You'll get the domain and range right. You're wrong. I'm going to mark them wrong. Your homework.
So 27, 28,
Your homework is page 608, 1 through 8 all, and 10 through 13 all. Let me look at that, make sure that's what I want. 1 through 8 all, and 10 through 13 all is fine.